Hello, my name is Eric Edward Schell, and I use he, him, his pronouns. Courage has played a big role in my life. Until I started working on what I would be saying today for Creative Mornings, I hadn't stopped in a while to really reflect and embrace the amount of courage the last few years has taken. The dictionary definition of courage is mental or moral strengths to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. The past 2 years, I've faced a lot of fears face on, starting with getting sober. I had a 15-plus year relationship with alcohol and occasionally other substances. Finally, one day I realized that my life was going nowhere and I needed a change. So I got sober. I don't attend meetings or follow a program. And I've learned that it takes courage to admit that, because people want to discount my sobriety or the fact that I had a problem to begin with simply because I don't adhere to a normal path of recovery and sobriety. Adhering to norms isn't something that LGBTQIA people always have the luxury of doing. Because of the heteronormative society we all exist in, anything outside of that is seen as different or other. Think about it. Before a baby is even born, we force gender roles and with gender reveal parties. This is set up to help expected parents prepare for their baby's room, clothes, and toys, which is smart. But depending on what a piece of paper says about your baby's perceived sex, you have two options for toys and accessories. Pink for a girl, blue for a boy. We condition ourselves and society to think about gender and gender roles without consideration of sexual orientation or gender identity while we are still in the womb. I, for one, loved to embrace my feminine side as a child. My very supportive and open-minded parents even allowed me to have a costume closet dedicated to dresses, wigs, and tons of makeup. This love for being someone else followed me for the first 30-so years of my life. I performed in musical theater, professionally for 17 years, 6 solid years here in Houston, Texas, with a resident company downtown. I think part of the reason hiding behind the face and persona of a made-up character in a show was comforting was because I wasn't quite sure how to be the gay man that I am today. I didn't look like the skinny, muscular, blonde hair, blue-eyed characters on TV. I didn't have people like me represented in my community on a national level. This social conditioning of gender norms still plays a big role in my daily life. Recently, I had a very eye-opening experience at Target, one of my favorite stores. One day, I arrived at the store with a full beard, a baseball cap, jeans, and a backpack. I was able to navigate society invisibly. That same week, I shaved my beard, had on big sunglasses, and was carrying my new Michael Kors bag. And I was wearing a Trans Equality Now shirt. I received stares, dirty looks, and even audible comments. I was very puzzled by this, and I told my partner about it when I got home. It wasn't until he said, "Eric, you shaved, you were carrying a purse while wearing a Trans Equality Now shirt," that I realized why I was getting looks and comments. I also realized that these people had made me feel so uncomfortable and ashamed to be who I am that I contemplated making a conscious choice to be someone I wasn't, so that they were comfortable. I, however, decided to fight people's idea of masculinity and gender expression and be courageous enough to endure people's comments and push the boundaries of their minds in hopes that one day we live in a world where someone doesn't have to make a choice or think twice about existing or presenting as the person they want to in the world. That mindset wasn't always there for myself. It wasn't until I got sober and found my self-worth and embraced the very outspoken, visible, opinionated LGBTQIA activist and ally who also happens to be political savvy that I am today. This transformation didn't happen overnight, though. I, by luck, was asked to photograph a project that eventually became an official entity of Equality Texas called the Texas Transvisible Project. Equality Texas's transgender programs coordinator, Lou Weaver, was a new friend of mine. He had started a project to elevate and highlight trans voices. I photographed roughly 30 individuals and about 6 families. During this process, I met an entirely new community within the LGBTQIA spectrum. I also realized that simply existing as a gay man for 30 plus years didn't automatically give me knowledge or education on the rest of our community of marginalized groups. With a good educational experience and project under my belt that made me aware of how to be a better ally to the trans community, I was on the lookout for something new. I was keeping busy with a steady stream of clients from Eric Edward Schell Photography, my photography company. I remember vividly a moment when I had to be courageous and stand up to a client of mine who tried, in a way, to erase the need for LGBTQIA visibility and my involvement in the movement. She had seen my work with the Texas Transvisible Project, and after a headshot shoot in her loft, she sat me down and proceeded to inform me that some people might not want to work with me if I became so heavily involved in the gay community, that I shouldn't pigeonhole myself to becoming the gay photographer of Houston. Someone who I thought was a friend was in their eyes giving me business advice. To me, I heard bigotry and homophobia. I said, well, I think I'm doing all right, and if someone doesn't want to work with me because of my work with my community, that's okay. I'm gay. On June 12th, 2016, I made a very conscious decision to, in fact, do just that, to pigeonhole myself within the LGBTQIA community and promote visibility the best I could. I woke up, like the rest of the world, to the news that 49 people were murdered. Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, was the scene of a horrific crime. A man decided to enter a gay club, a safe space for my community, and deliberately end the lives of 49 people, injuring countless others. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that in 2016, people wanted members of the LGBTQIA community dead. We had come so far in the fight for equality. I was also so naive in that I thought that since we won marriage equality, we had made it. I quickly realized marriage equality, although a great gift, was just a stepping stone to full LGBTQIA equality. The evening after Pulse, I was scheduled to attend a fundraising event, a silent auction for the Houston GLBT political caucus, where I had donated a photograph of Mayor Turner. The event was being held in a gay nightclub, not much bigger than Pulse nightclub. It was eerie. I heard Houston's law enforcement and our top political leaders speak about the tragedy. It was very surreal to me. The courage of each person who showed up and was standing in that building was evident. Everyone across the nation now looked at queer bars in a different light, not to mention with a heightened awareness of our surroundings. Days later, Brad Pritchett, a friend of mine who works for the ACLU of Texas, asked me and other community leaders to participate in a video shoot. We would circulate this through social media and let people know how important it was to be visible that year and to show up to Pride and not be afraid. During the video shoot, I was photographing everyone involved. We were at the corner of Tuam and Bagby in front of a paint wall with rainbow colors falling from the top of the building all the way to the sidewalk. It was beautiful. At the time, I lived in Friendswood, and my roommates were visiting New York City. My 2 best friends, Michael and Thomas. It was Michael's birthday, and I was FaceTiming them while they were at the duplex watching a drag show. Simultaneously, I was uploading the photographs from that day from the Pride Wall. I was silently planning a move back to New York City, where I had lived for 5 years, because I was tired of the conservative South. After I hung up the phone, I started looking at the photographs. I realized I had photographed, in a matter of 3 hours, the entire LGBTQIA spectrum. Maybe I wasn't in such a conservative state after all. I sat there in the kitchen looking at these photos over and over again, trying to figure out what to do with them. So I posted them on my Facebook page, and I tagged each person in their photo. I went to bed, and I woke up to tons of notifications. I realized that these photos were very popular. I really wasn't sure what to do with them, if anything now. Over the next few days, I decided, well, it is Pride Month, and maybe this is something people would like to do. So I went to my computer and created a Facebook event and called it Pride Portraits. I posted a photo of the wall and said I would be there for a certain number of hours on a specific day. I invited a few friends, and before I knew it, strangers were saying they would stop by to get their photo taken in front of this wall. It was June. It was the middle of summer. It was hot and humid, and it was miserable outside. I was surprised anyone would want to come and get their photographed outside in that weather. Well, at the end of the first event, 95 people had been photographed in front of the wall. The majority of them I didn't know. I edited and posted the photographs, and I got messages from people asking if I would be doing this again. I figured, why not? So I made another Facebook event, and at the end of 4 open shoots, outside at this wall, I had about 350 people photographed, mostly strangers. I wasn't entirely sure why, but people would talk to me while I was photographing them and tell me all sorts of fascinating stories. Most of them were about being LGBTQIA. So I started asking people to write down something about themselves on an index card. I started typing out their responses, and I added them when I posted their photos. People really responded positively to that. Being the middle of summer, I was so dehydrated, sweaty, and gross at the end of each of these open shoots. I decided to stop doing them and assess what I wanted to do next. I decided I needed something portable if I was going to continue photographing people so I wouldn't have to stand outside. I had met an artist at one of these shoots, so I gave him a call. We met for lunch, and I realized we had a lot of parallels in our lives. He was from El Salvador, where I was born. We both grew up in San Francisco, and his grandma and my grandma had the same first name, Juanita. We bonded over all this, and I commissioned him to paint the backdrop for me. I told him I wanted a broad representation of a pride flag. I didn't want a literal rainbow because I wanted the entire community and our allies to feel comfortable being photographed in front of it. Over the next week or so, Hugo worked on this backdrop. I remember going to his studio to see the final product. I was very nervous. I walked in, and I saw the canvas, and I was speechless. It was as if Hugo had gone into my brain and put on canvas with paint exactly what I wanted. We decided to host a launch where we decided to host a launch where we would invite people to take part in the new campaign, Pride Portraits. I decided after a long conversation with Michael and Thomas that Pride Portraits would stand for Photographs Representing Individuals Deserving Equality. The launch party was a success. A bunch of people showed up, and we celebrated this new campaign. Then we launched the official Pride Portraits Facebook page, Instagram, and Twitter. Outsmart magazine was very gracious and did a story on the campaign very early on. From this article, a representative from GLSEN reached out to me and asked if Pride Portraits would come to Austin Pride and do portraits with the GLSEN Austin chapter at their Pride Festival. Hugo and I ventured to Austin. We met so many amazing people, and the campaign was received very well. We even met celebrity Danny Pinturo of Who's the Boss fame, who had recently come out about his addiction issues and his HIV status. He participated in the campaign without hesitation. Once we got back to Houston, transgender activist Aiden Dowling had responded to an email I sent him a few weeks before. Aiden is very well known for using YouTube as a platform to bring awareness to the trans community. In his email, he expressed he wanted to be part of the campaign and would even host a photo shoot at a local queer space. So we collected what little money we had, we booked flights and a rental car, and shipped the backdrop to Eugene, Oregon. Aiden, his wife Jenny Lee, and I spent an amazing afternoon together doing a private photo shoot and going to dinner. The next night, we hosted a huge photo shoot with all the local queer community in Eugene. It was amazing. I photographed everyone, and I collect statements once again. Aiden documented the entire trip for us, and you can find it on his YouTube channel if you want. Once we got back, I decided we needed to become a nonprofit organization. I fully believed that what Pride Portraits was offering was good enough to be funded to allow me and my team to travel outside of Houston and reach people who didn't have a space to be visible. So we had a few meetings, Hugo and I. Hugo was now in charge of creating our branding and the look of the campaign. Being a graphic designer, this was definitely his strong suit. He also created our website. After months of paperwork and a friend who happened to be a lawyer and is now a Texas Senate candidate, we got our 501c3. For the next year, I hit the ground running, scheduling open shoots, working with other organizations to spread awareness and building our brand. GLAAD reached out after seeing the campaign on social media and did a story on us. Human Rights Campaign has been instrumental with their support and exposure of Pride Portraits. They hosted the campaign at their national headquarters in DC during the National Equality March. We partnered with them and did a special edition Pride Portrait shoot where I asked over 300 participants, why do you march? Partnering with PFLAG and having parents make a conscious choice to be visible for their children and others around the country was very courageous of them. Creating this space online, using social media, and partnering with many of the world's largest LGBTQIA organizations put the campaign's name out there. With that, however, comes a lot of responsibility. I am asking people to be photographed, to have their photo on the internet, along with their full name and a statement about who they are. For the most part, the public has been very welcoming, but we have received some negative reactions as well. I've received a few death threats mailed to our studio. People will occasionally troll our social media page and comment on people's photographs in a negative way. We forget that it is still legal to fire someone for being LGBTQIA in some places, to deny them housing. We have kids who aren't allowed to use the bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity, forcing them to hold their bladders, in turn causing medical problems. 2017 was the deadliest the US has ever seen for the LGBTQIA community. Our community saw an 86% increase in hate-related homicides. The trans community went through 24 murders in 2017 in the US. 19 Black people, 18 trans feminine, 1 trans masculine, and 2 Latina women were killed for existing as they are. Pride Portraits was honored to be used in a tangible way during SB 6 and the other incarnations of the bill. That's the bathroom bill. People showed up at the Capitol holding Pride Portraits of trans people at a press conference combating the bill to show the faces of trans Texans and youth. It takes a lot of courage to be part of this campaign, and I am beyond humbled and quite literally brought to my knees when I read the majority of the statements people give. The amount of honesty and personal information people share is beautiful. It is so rewarding to know that I've created a space for people to be visible, represented, and humanized who might not without the campaign. Over the 2 years, I have had many people use Pride Portraits' platform as a way to come out to their family and friends. I even had a trans woman who transitioned later in life be photographed and tell me later that it was the first time she saw herself as the beautiful woman that she is. People across the country have done Pride Portraits, and I know at this point the campaign has barely touched the surface of what I know it can do. Another point of courage I see happening is the allies who have taken part in the campaign. I've had allies from all walks of life, but when Congressman John Lewis, Nancy Pelosi, Beto O'Rourke, who's running a campaign, actress Martha Plimpton, and many others in the public eye agreed to join the campaign and be represented with a photograph and statement, it's mind-blowing to me. They are putting their words into actions by being visible allies to our community. There is one portrait in particular that means a lot to me. My partner at Crimson and I drove to Florida from Houston with the backdrop in my car to meet Tony Marrero, a Pulse survivor who was shot 4 times. I messaged him on Facebook with a link to the campaign website, and within minutes, he agreed to be part of the campaign and have his photo released on the 1-year anniversary. The first year of the campaign has taught me something so valuable. I started this campaign for people outside of the community to be able to humanize us. I now realize the people who need the most education are those of us within the spectrum. We get so caught up in our own respective letter, we forget about the rest. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual. In 2018, 3 months into the new year, we were fortunate enough to partner and be a guest at South by Southwest. We're partnering with Facebook next month. We are in the process of installing the first Be Visible Pride wall at Jenny's Newell House in the Heights with an unveiling on April 5th. Jim Obergefell will be our guest of honor. Seeing the positive reaction from the public and knowing that the campaign's work speaks for itself has given me the courage to reach goals that were at one point seemingly unattainable. Having Chad Griffin, the president of Human Rights Campaign, the largest LGBTQ organization, come and personally greet me at their headquarters. Feeling emboldened enough to email the revolutionary and groundbreaking Melissa Etheridge to participate in the campaign, followed by me sitting next to her on a sofa, listening to her telling me about coming out at the White House before we had icons like Ellen. Being personal friends with Jim Obergefell, the plaintiff in the case that granted us national marriage equality. This courage has even crossed over into my personal life, allowing me to realize that I am deserving of love, and I'm almost a month away from my 1-year anniversary with my amazing partner, Crimson, who loves me more than I thought imaginable. Most of all, it has taught me that this campaign is not about Eric Edward Schell. It's about the 3,000 courageous people who have participated in Pride Portraits. Thank you.